Welcome to part 3 of our Finance Fundamentals educational presentation. We've covered incoming funds, so now let's take a look at outgoing funds, which is the money an association spends. We can divide outgoing funds into two main categories: operating expenses and capital expenditures. Let's look at where outgoing funds fit into the overall financial flow. As we can see, outgoing funds are the last step of the overall flow, where the money is used to pay for everything that keeps our community running and in good shape. Before we look at examples, let's first define these terms. Operating expenses are what it costs to run and maintain the community on a day-to-day basis. This can include expenses like recurring maintenance, services such as building security, utility bills for common areas, administrative costs like insurance, legal fees, and office supplies, and the salaries of office staff and maintenance engineers. Capital expenditures are large-scale major repairs, replacements, or improvements to capital assets. Capital assets are defined as any physical property owned by the association, typically with a life beyond a year. Now that we know what capital expenditures are, let's look at some examples. Capital expenditures include the long-standing physical components of the property, such as building exteriors, major building systems, common areas such as the fitness center, energy efficiency equipment, and safety and security equipment. With capital expenditures, sometimes those large-scale major projects are created and managed by our association, and sometimes they fall under the responsibility of the commercial owner of the property. Some condo associations are part of what's called a mixed-use space, which essentially means they are part of a shared physical property, mingling residential spaces with commercial spaces, each having a stake in the common areas and infrastructure. In addition to the residential units, the building also has commercial spaces. If commercial owner is responsible for decisions about large capital expenditures, they take the lead on those projects, and the condo association pays their share of the cost based on what percentage of the property they own. This is the case for our association. At first glance, this mixed-use arrangement might seem as if it is not beneficial for our association, but it actually has some real benefits. First, from a financial standpoint, if our condo association owned 100% of the property, we would be paying 100% of the costs for all projects related to maintaining our building. However, since our association only pays for a portion of capital projects managed by the commercial owner, it results in us, as unit owners, paying less than the full price for large building projects. In other words, one of the benefits of a mixed-use space is that it reduces our overall cost burden. Additionally, since the large capital projects are managed by the commercial owner, a lot of the legwork of coordinating these projects falls on them, which eases the administrative burden on our board and management team. Lastly, and perhaps most importantly, because the commercial owner has a vested interest in keeping the property in good condition to protect their investment, there's a lower risk of major disrepairs. While the timing of these capital expenditures is not always in our control, the long-term impact is that there are multiple parties ensuring the property stays in good condition. This ultimately ensures we remain aligned with our overarching goals to cultivate an inviting community and maintain and enhance property values for all of us owners. So how do we pay for capital expenditures? It depends on the financial health of our association. If we have enough money set aside, we can use our reserve fund to cover the cost. But if we don't, we might need to raise a special assessment. In some cases, the association might take out a loan, which we then pay back over time. And if our reserves are in really great shape, we might even be able to invest some of that money and use the interest to help pay for capital projects. That brings us to a crucial part of our financial picture: our reserve fund, which is a separate account set aside for major repairs and replacements over the long term. You can think of our reserve fund as a savings account for our community. It's money that we set aside specifically to pay for major repairs and replacements down the road. By putting aside a little bit of money each month, we can build our financial reserves and thus avoid special assessments when those major projects come up. Why is a reserve fund so important? A healthy reserve fund protects our community and us as association members from unexpected financial stress due to having too low of a savings account balance. Think of the reserves as financial protection. You might be wondering, Can't we just deal with major expenses as they come up? Well, there are a few key reasons why having a healthy reserve fund is essential. It allows us to plan ahead for big projects that we know are coming, so we're not scrambling to come up with the money at the last minute. With a healthy reserve fund, we can pay for unexpected emergency expenses without having to raise funds via special assessments. It's also a key indicator of the overall financial health of our community, and that financial health directly impacts our property values. And lastly, here in Illinois, it's actually a legal requirement for condo associations to maintain a reasonable reserve fund. So how do we know how much money we need to have in our reserve fund? We rely on two key tools. The first is called a reserve study. This is a detailed report that evaluates all the major components of our property, like the roof and the elevators, and estimates how much longer they'll last and how much it will cost to repair or replace them. We hire an outside expert to do this study for us, and we update it every few years. The second tool we use to know how much money we need to have in our reserve fund is the project plan from the building commercial owner, which outlines the major projects they're planning over the next decade, along with our share of the estimated cost. The combination of these two multi-year forecasts provides some insight into potential expenses down the road and helps the board build the reserve fund in advance, in preparation for these estimated costs. That's it for part 3 of this series. Be sure to check out part 4, where we'll take a look at financial oversight.